going live.
We're live.
In this moment, must have.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Drag Illustrated proudly introduces to you the Wes Buck Show.
Hey, we can keep that going, man. I'm cool with that.
Is that our new intro?
There you have it, man. The new intro.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, what's up, guys?
We've had some budget cuts here at the Wes Buck Show. So we've got
And now I'm doing voiceovers now. It wouldn't surprise me if Wes called and said, "Hey, man, what do you think about doing voiceovers? Like, we could do it on the side."
Yeah.
Let's dive into it. Why not?
I actually have been going through that for a minute. Alicia asked me what was wrong with me the other day, and I'm like,
where do I start?
I was like, well, where do I start? But it was like, she was, you need a project. You need like just put on a race, do something, occupy your. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that or not. You have a question for us or anything, Dion? Or do we have our random question to start the show deal?
There's a little controversy that's pretty big on the internet right now. And the world is wanting to know if you think that there are more wheels or more doors on the planet.
I saw this one a couple of weeks ago.
Anywhere, wheels are. I'm going wheels all the way.
Yeah, wheels
all the way.
Yeah, because I mean, even if you have if you talk about doors as far as doors on houses and whatnot.
Well,
but there's a lot of buildings with like so many doors, like skyscrapers.
Yeah, just think about all the wheels that are in your house with like Hot Wheels, your
elevators.
Yeah.
So we're like counting all wheels, is what you're saying.
All wheels and all doors.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of houses that have wheels. There's like at least a considerable number of them.
Think about a race trailer. That's got a lot of wheels and a lot of doors.
That's true.
I think there's got to be more wheels. Right?
There has to be more wheels.
I think there has to be more wheels.
I feel like there are more cars than there are homes.
Dude, my neighborhood, people have cars stacked like firewood. It's unbelievable. Like parked
on the road.
Yeah, dude. It's
double
just unreal.
Driveway.
I'm looking around going, man, where are all these cars coming from?
A lot of times if your house has wheels, most of the time your whole lawn's full of cars.
Yeah. They go together.
Run or not,
Those two things go hand in hand, typically.
They do.
Oh my god.
Have you seen that picture of like that Bugatti that's backed into like a covered
yes,
like a deal beside a
carport,
two of them,
single wide,
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Carport is the terminology you're looking for there.
Carport, yeah.
Or lean-to.
Lean-to.
Called a lean-to.
Lean-to, yeah. Man, carport was escaping me.
All right, guys. Let's get.
All right, let's do this thing.
Let's get.
The Wes Buck Show.
It's uncut. It's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. This is the biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred.
Speaking his mind.
I've never had a problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way.
Exploring hot topics.
Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do.
And spreading the gospel of drag racing.
I respect the history. I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing.
The Wes Buck Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, April 20th, 2022. So excited to have you. We appreciate you joining us here each and every Wednesday to talk drag racing, break down all the latest and greatest, all the new happenings in the sport of drag racing. What happened last weekend is almost always a conversation that we like to have, special guests and everything in between. But as I say all the time, it would not be anything without all of you. Your involvement, your engagement, you guys being here and being part of the conversation, makes all the difference in the world. Thank you so much. If you're watching along on Facebook, make sure you're following the Drag Illustrated page. Make sure you give us a like, click that little thumbs up. If you're watching along on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you get notified or alerted anytime we post fresh new content. We got a whale of a show for you today. We got a couple special guests that we're going to be talking to. We have Alex Taylor, who I think may well be one of the biggest stars in the sport of drag racing right now. I'm a big fan. We're real big fans of Alex Taylor, what she's doing in the sport. Fantastic. A little after the start of hour 2, we will touch base with the one and only pro nitrous superstar, PDRA former world champion Jason Harris, making waves this past weekend at the Big Dog Shootout out at the legendary Piedmont Dragway in North Carolina. Took the win. Lots of controversy out there, all sorts of things to talk about. We've got a big weekend coming up in the sport of drag racing. We've got, this is a mouthful, right? Yeah, the NHRA Spring Nationals in Houston. Potentially, more than likely, for the last time the NHRA rolls through the gates, rolls into Baytown, Texas for the NHRA Spring Nationals. We have the Midwest Drag Racing Series taking over Memphis International Raceway. Radial Outlaws headed to Alabama International Raceway. And of course, No Prep Kings showing up for their second race of the season out in Virginia. Guys, there's a whole lot of drag racing going on. I sent someone a text today, and I said, there's almost more racing going on than there are people to cover. Like, I was thinking about who we're going to have where this weekend.
Yeah, there's a lot, man. We were
There's
off.
a lot going on.
Everybody was off last weekend, so we got to make up for it this weekend.
I mean, I guess so. It's a reminder, a stark reminder, like a really, really kind of a rough reminder of there's only so many weekends of the year. I know every time along we get frustrated, right? Or whatever. People
weekends,
stack.
Man. This good weather, this early season spring weather.
There's only so
before
many.
It gets hot. Oh yeah, everybody tries to stack races up right now.
Yeah, and it's really tough. And everybody, I wanted to say this, and this is something that I'm seeing a lot on social. Like, and I get it. There's all this talk, and we've talked a lot about it here on the show about these tracks closing and whatnot. But despite all that, like, don't get it twisted. Drag racing's doing well. I look around right now and I'm seeing crowds everywhere. There's 2,000 people at Piedmont Dragway last Thursday night for Big Dog, right? I mean, there's races. We're talking about it. There's more going on than there are people to follow it, at least here at Drag Illustrated. We can hardly keep up with all the events going on. Every time I blink, there's another $100,000 or $80,000 or $40,000 to win back of the track race. All sorts of stuff going on. There's a pro mod race on every street corner. It would seem like we got funny car races popping up, independent funny car races popping up. Obviously, the NHRA is really strong right now. PDRA had a barn burner start to the season. Midwest Drag Racing Series had a barn burner start to the season. We had Mike Galemi from the NMCA on here a couple of weeks ago and talked to him at lengths about the great season that NMCA is having.
Yep. They're in Rockingham this weekend.
It's a lot of drag racing, brother.
This area, Rockingham, Virginia, Memphis, we don't really count that as Southeast. There's a huge test session going on in Darlington yesterday and today.
Yep.
Lots going on, man.
How do you, I'm going to ask you that is this, like, how do you like process those two like stark, I've said that twice today already, was a drinking game is upon us, but
well, we've already said barn burner twice too. So
yeah, I know. How do you digest, how do you digest those two different things? Right. I mean, all this talk about tracks closing, Palm Beach International fighting for its life, right? Memphis, it's a foregone conclusion that Memphis International Raceway is closing down. I do think there's a little bit of confusion that remains about the Houston Raceway Park down in Baytown, Texas. The track's not closing.
Open letter today. Check that out if you haven't read that.
Yeah, it's on dragillustrated.com. But perusing that article and just thinking about that, it's weird that these two things are happening simultaneously. Are you following me? Like, we just outlined more drag racing than a guy can hardly keep up with. I mean, you're going to wear out your subscriptions this weekend if you're trying to watch all of these deals. If you're trying to attend a lot of them, you're going to be overwhelmed. I mean, there's no way you can. It's insane, all the good stuff that's going on. But simultaneously, we have these tracks closing. It's very odd.
And like last race at two of these tracks on the same weekend, right?
Yeah, how weird is that?
That's really I think we talked about this. The tracks that are thriving are really thriving. And the tracks that have put the effort in, the investment in, that are run by passionate owners and people. I mean, I'm not saying some of these tracks that are closing don't tick those boxes, but the ones that have really done the work to get to this point seem to be thriving. I think all the ones we're talking about racing this weekend fit that bill. And then you've got some that, due to maybe even factors outside of their control, are closing. So it's sort of like a consolidation. The tracks they're thriving are having a ton of races and are doing well.
It's weird because it just feels like the sentiment is, well, and this is just human nature. We're so quick to get down in the dumps. Everybody loves to kind of pile on, right? Everybody's talking about, I mean, literally, we posted that story on dragillustrator.com. I'm going to pull it up just so I can like be accurate while I talk about this, you know. the post on Facebook's got like a gazillion comments and all these people bemoaning, oh, the sport's dying and this is just another step towards the death of drag racing. And I'm going, what are you paying attention to the same thing I am? Because I can hardly follow all this. I mean, it's insane, all the stuff that's going on. And like,
if you're a fan, you're going to make a decision this weekend on where you want to go. You know,
rough,
there's that many good races going on.
What out of all this stuff that's going on, what are you guys most excited about?
I'd have to say
probably NHRA and the no preps going on too.
Yeah,
so.
Both of those things I think will be good. I'm interested to
it's
see
hot right now.
what Donald's deal does. This is really like the first race or the first venturing off the beaten path for them. I know they're calling it like the third race in the series, but venturing to Steele, Alabama, which is a track that I haven't. I don't think I've said Steele, Alabama since the early.
It's been a long
days.
time, man. It's been a hot minute.
He showed some photos of the track. Looks like they've done some work there. It's got a ton of paved parking, and I'm sure they've done everything they can to prepare for those guys. But it'll be interesting to see what the weather's like down there and how those cars perform. I think that's going to be the thing to see what happens when the weather gets warmer as we progress through that Radial Outlaw series.
Well, speaking of Radial Outlaws, we have a rising star in the Radial Outlaws world in the green room right now. JT, go ahead and bring on Alex Taylor, the one and only. Alex, what's going on, man?
Hey, how are you?
Man. Oh, sorry. Yeah, woman.
Man. It works.
So where are you? You're somewhere between Arkansas and Alabama on the way to Steele?
Yeah, somewhere stuck on the side of the road because it's pouring down rain, so it actually worked out perfect to pull over. But so I don't actually somewhere in Arkansas. Somewhere.
Wild times, right? Well,
you just jumped in this radio car, and now you're gonna go to Steele, Alabama. You're getting the full experience.
It's insane. So we started off this, like, for us, our season typically with the drag and drive stuff doesn't even typically start till June. And I was talking to Dad the other day. I was like, you know what? I've been at a racetrack for the past 5 weekends. Well, there's been one weekend that's an exception, but racing back to back to back. And it's not even, we're just now in May kind of deal. So it's crazy. We went down and tested the 55, and then the Radial deal popped up as an opportunity. And it's just been like, we hit that full force, and it's the neatest thing.
How do you like it so far?
Well, yeah, I'm curious because when we were down in Bradenton, Alex Taylor is on this quest. For those that don't know, and I think we should probably give Alex a brief introduction here. Alex, your story was largely born alongside your father, Dennis Taylor, who is an incredible human being. And I got to spend some time with you guys down in Bradenton during Sick Week. Had a ton of fun, to be honest. You've grown up at the racetrack. You've been a big part of this drag and drive scene since you got your driver's license, since it was even possible. And the story of 2022, by and large, was let's get Alex a 6-second elapsed time, time slip. Let's get her 200 miles an hour in the quarter mile. And it's been awesome to see this whole story unfold and everything that you've accomplished in the drag and drive scene. But all of a sudden now you're running 380s at 210 in the 8th mile in half the distance. I mean, can you take us through like how primarily, I guess, just the experience of going from, racing on a big tire, right? A slick tire with those cars are notorious for moving, right? You know what I mean? They have a little bit more wobble to them, especially down track, to these stiff sidewall radial cars, and especially going, a big power one. How has this, whole thing come to be? And what's the experience been like so far?
So it's interesting. That's, so when my first car was 68 Camaro. It's a radial car. And so going from that, which was only an 850 car, it's what it was started at, to the 55 was a huge change because that was the radial tire. Now I'm learning a big tire, and I can't tell you how many passes and testing, like I get out like 60 foot and lift because it just felt like it didn't feel right. It was right, but I didn't have that baseline of what right was. And so I'm really glad that I went from the big tire with the 55 to the radial tire with the Bumblebee Pro Mod, just because the adjustment wasn't quite as intense as far as how the car feels. So a lot of people, when I was, getting ready, I shouldn't say a lot, but, some people question like the jump from the 55 to that car because it's such a difference in speed, or it seems like such a difference. But that car drives, it's more, it doesn't have that big tire walk, and it's less of an adjustment. So I'm glad the step happened how it did. And it was the funniest thing, because we were down testing that we're at NMCA in Bradenton right after sick week. We'd gone back down, and Patrick Miller came down to help us test per Ryan Whitty's request. And literally, like, had just hit 255, and then he said, hey, like, we're going to Ducks race this coming weekend, and me and Ryan and my dad have talked, and if you want to drive, like, the opportunity is yours. Like, come hop in the car. And so talk about trial by fire. Like, I've not done anything that fast. Yeah, I had no time to prepare, but it was one of those, it's like, if the opportunity's there, like, I got to take it kind of deal. So we drove directly from there with 55 in tow up to their place in South Carolina, and we got 2 attempted test hits at Darlington, and we didn't even make a pass. Like, we didn't even get off the line, but it's got a Liberty in it. I've never driven a Liberty, so that was a whole different adjustment, like not getting stuck in reverse, which sounds so simple, but that's something I hadn't done before. So I had 2 test passes, and then we were at Ducks race. So it's just like out there, middle of everything. But thankfully Patrick and his dad, like, they were super easygoing. They're like, we're going to slow it down, and like, we'll work it into it so you're comfortable. And we made a couple short hits, and then, we ran like a 401 at 197 by the time that was over. But we went back and tested and made a fast pass as fast.
What is the 55, like, best case scenario? What's it run in the 8th mile?
I think we ran a 460 something the other day, and then we're trying to get it down in 450s. But
so, I mean, it's so funny though to like hear you nonchalantly like kind of brush off a 4 flat, Yeah. I mean, Mike and I were actually talking about this the other day, like how we've all become desensitized to the performances of these cars. Like, I think your dad would, echo this sentiment that it wasn't that long ago that a car that went 4.0 in the 8th mile was amongst the fastest cars on the planet Earth, right? I mean, these things are bonkers. But now it seems like it happens all the time. So it's weird to hear you say that. I mean, how much of a difference was it for you, like, seat of the pants, holy crap, this thing's moving, especially when you started going 380s at 200 plus?
You're breaking up a little bit, so I'm having trouble getting your question. What was that very last part?
Well, just like seat of the pants feel, how much of a change was it going from, running a 460 in a big tire car? I mean, I'm sure you felt like a significant sensation, like a different feeling inside the car running 200 plus in the 8th.
Yeah. Okay. So the main difference, like, not only is the speed, but in the 55, like, I've got like a fishbowl I can look at, it's like driving through a regular car. And it's a giant car, and I can see out all the windows. I can look in my mirror. I've got a long mirror up there. I can see the back. Like, I can actually see stuff. And I got in this yellow car, the Pro Mod car, and I'm like, am I supposed to see? Like, am I supposed to like see what's going on here? Or no, like that is what it is. And so I'm like, okay, so not only is it a fast sensation,
it's like blinders on a horse.
It is, with like very limited view. And so that's been surprisingly, one of the things that's a big difference. But to go that fast without seeing the world just fly by you it's a very different feeling.
Yeah, it's claustrophobic, I think, is the word that I would give it. The first time I ever had all my gear on and closed the door on a car like that and fired it up, I was like, it feels like you're in a coffin or something.
It really is. It's wild. But I mean, after that last pass where we did 209, it was like, all I said at the top end was, holy crap. Like, that's all I could think at the time was,
oh no, right as her phone probably died.
She'll jump back in.
Yeah, she'll be back in.
She was alluding to this video. They did a GoPro video, like out the back, like it strapped to the wing or something, and watching the car or watching the people standing behind the car disappear. And then you can hear, I guess it was probably mounted inside the car, because you could hear Alex whooping it up after the run. And then she pulls over and then goes behind the car and gives it a thumbs up or something. Pretty cool video if you guys haven't seen it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, Alex's social is full of awesome videos. How much, like, so when you go into these things and you have an opportunity like this, Alex, like, are you going into it saying like, hey, I've got to use this as an opportunity to just create more content? Like, the more Alex Taylor can get in a race car, probably the better, right? For the
So
gram, basically.
I should be creating more content. I have all the videos for it, but honestly, like, I love the driving. I go into the opportunity to have the opportunity to drive the car. Like, that's first and foremost. And so I enjoy it at the moment. And if you look right now on my YouTube channel, it's been over a month since I posted a video, which is I'm not proud of that, but there's been so much
It's hard.
stuff
It's hard
happening.
though. It takes a while to you know, and then you have to edit, and then
It
then even
does.
writing the captions, like when you're at the track and you record something, you're like, oh, I need to post that. But then you got to go over to the side. You got people hollering at you, you know, and you're trying to put the right hashtags down. You're trying not to make
Exactly.
any errors,
Anybody
you
mad.
know.
Trying to take care of
Exactly.
everybody and not piss anybody off. Those are
And
At the
do
same
whatever
time,
it
right,
is you're
yeah,
doing,
yeah, like,
right?
Look
Like,
how rude he is. He's on his phone, or you know, or she is. Yeah.
no, I mean, like when you're making your posts and your tags
Right.
and making sure, and someone like Alex who's got tons of supporters, got to get everybody in
can't-
there, you know.
If you leave one person off, you're going to hear about it.
You do. And
Yep.
it's one of those things where I don't go, I've always said, like, I'm a I love racing, and so I create content so I can keep racing, rather than race so I have content. And so I'm bad about, you know, enjoying the moment and then not getting the content out. I have it all. I've got so many videos. I haven't even shared my 200-mile-an-hour pass. You know, Tom Bailey actually called me the other day, and he says, like, his first thing is, do you want us to edit your videos? And I thought he was being a jerk. And I was like, I know, I got to get it out. He's like, no, seriously. Like, do you want my guy that helps me edit to edit your videos? I'm like, yes, please. So he's going to help me out.
That's great.
but it's interesting because it's pretty much what's required. Like, I mean, I'm seeing it now, and it's really tough. Like, I think about it from this perspective of, like, just parenting. Like, you feel all this pressure, right, to like film everything your kid does and like take all the pictures. But then it's like, man, I'm just trying to enjoy this moment with my kid. You know what I mean? And I don't want to have to think about lighting or angles or, you know, and it's tough because I feel bad for, not bad, because it's fantastic that these opportunities exist for content creators, but it is tough because you're out here like living your dream, and it's spectacular and the whole world's cheering you on, but there is this pressure to be like, hey, you better make sure you get your video up. You need to post every 6 hours. You know, you got to, and it is a really, really interesting thing. But I think you touched on something pretty cool there, that you create content so you can keep racing. I mean, you've turned this into a business, and we've been talking about this for a lot right here on this show and on the pages of Drag Illustrated magazine. That's pretty much what every aspiring racer, that's how you have to look at it. Because I think that's how a lot of these sponsors are looking at it. A lot of these companies are going, we need Alex Taylors because we need content. The industry needs content. We need stuff to keep this whole fire burning. So it serves a ton of purposes, but man, oh man, is it a grind.
It is. And that's something that I've always wanted to do stuff myself. I like having the hands-on control of, like, if it's going to be posted to the world, I want my touch on it, you know, not like somebody that I brought in to do it. And so that's releasing the reins on that, something that I've struggled with a little bit. And I still haven't totally done it, but I know in order to like make the next step and do the things that I want to do, I have to do that. But I'm pretty excited because my sister is graduating from college in May. And so she's going to come work with me for at least this year, and handle lots of social stuff and handle all the things that I kind of drop by the wayside. So she'll go to the races with me and help me with that kind of stuff. So I think that's going to make a big difference.
That's awesome.
You touched on something there as well. What does Alex Taylor want to accomplish? Like, when you start closing your eyes, I mean, because listen, young lady, I mean, you're doing big things out here, right? I mean, you're doing
dad talk.
Dad talk. But you've had a ton of, you know, obviously you've become a huge star in the drag and drive scene, which I'd like to talk to you about as well. And now you're diving into radial racing. I mean, you're kind of participating in that series. What if you close your eyes and have to think about where you want all this to go, or your ultimate goals? What are they?
Well, that's a difficult one, because that's always been something that everybody's asked, like, what's your end goal? And I've always said, like, I don't know. Like, I know that I want to stay in the automotive world. I know that I want to stay in the high performance side of it. And I don't know if it's behind the wheel or behind or, you know, in front of the camera. I don't know what exactly that looks like, just because I've not known what opportunities would present themselves. And so what I've done previously is just like, if the opportunity is there and I think it's going to put me somewhere along the path, then I take it. And so I'm still working on what that end goal looks like. But ultimately, like, I would love to drive and do some stuff, with camera work, and I've got some pretty exciting things in the works right now that's going to kind of direct what the future does look like. So I'll be able to answer that question, sooner than later. But it's just, there's a lot of pending things, and my goal is to keep a mixture of driving and some camera stuff, and then my social stuff. So
what do you think about, you did some in front of the camera stuff this past weekend at the No Prep Kings event.
We've been seeing more and more.
We've been seeing you obviously have a great relationship with the gang out at Iski. Nolan, great group of people out there, an iconic, legendary brand in our industry. What was that like? I mean, did you enjoy that? Did you think that was fun?
Yeah, so when I went to my first No Prep Kings event in Tulsa last year, and at first I was like, this is such a different world. Like, I don't know what I think about it. But then as I got to know, a lot of the guys from the NOLA team and a lot of people there, and hang out with Iski, like, this last event was just a blast. Like, they're great people, so much fun to be at. They're, really neat events. So I talk to Dad about this often. Like, I feel like there's a little bit expectation to like pick one type of racing and like put yourself in that box. And I don't want to do that. Like, I like this idea of like going to race a radial race this weekend and then take the 55 and, take it to an NMCA race the next weekend and hop and back and forth and just cover lots of different ground. And I don't know that that's the right answer. But
I think that's your calling card at this point. And when I think about you and like what you're doing with your career, I think that exact thing, that you're not afraid to jump around and do different things and try different stuff and just really see what works. And I think that that's going to lead to ultimate success down the road. Which
thinking about
no matter what, we've seen that with some of the young racers. Well, we saw it with Stevie. He jumped around and he would race just about anything. Alex Laughlin, he's the same way. I mean, go-kart,
drive anything, wheels,
UTVs to drag racing, it didn't matter, right? And I don't think it's uncommon anymore.
But interestingly, I don't think either one of those guys, I'm not trying to be mean or whatever, but I don't really feel like we saw it happen from afar. But the cool thing with Alex is that we're kind of getting to participate in the story and see it unfold, like right along. And I think that's the coolest part of it, because like you knew Alex drove a bunch of different stuff, and then he ended up in Pro Stock, and we all got to know him very well in Pro Stock, and now he's in Top Fuel, and we're continuing to get to know him. The same goes for Stevie Fast. I mean, Stevie bounced all over running radial tire cars, nitrous cars, blower cars. I mean,
grudge racing,
everything except grudge racing. But we didn't have a front row seat to all that. But with you, Alex, we've gotten to see, we're getting to see this. So I think that from a content creation perspective, that's a great story.
And also
you kind of find your way.
For sponsorship and partners, I mean, every time I turn around, I feel like I see someone or hear someone say, "Hey, we've added Alex Taylor as a brand ambassador, as a partner, or we're sponsoring her this year." And I think that's something that they are after, because they want to touch that more mainstream audience or touch multiple audiences. And I think that kind of making one investment with you guys is a way they're achieving that. Have you seen that or heard that from the people that you're partnering with? And is that something that has opened more doors for you recently?
I think it definitely has. It's something that I actually talk quite a bit with Nolan from Iski about, like, is being able to cover different areas. Because not only do you have racing, but then, in the shop, Dad and I, building and creating and things like that. And so it's been pretty cool over the past year to go from building the 55 to all the doors that the 55 opened and being able to share it. And it is cool to be able to document it. And I think it draws people in that are, they could be in their home, like at home in their garage and be building, and it, that's still interesting to them, because there's a certain level of when you're just strictly racing where you lose some relatableness, at least with like certain cars, the faster they are, they may be a little bit less relatable. But if you show like the struggles and the learning process and like the actual personal side of like what your life is, like my life is based around cars, like that's all I do. And so like being able to show all aspects of it, then you add like a personal, like human side to it. And so I think that's what a lot of brands like, more so than even just, because like I don't necessarily win a lot of stuff, to be honest. I'm working on it, but I've got a lot of great people that's behind me because they're along for that process and along for that, and it still shows the story to the outside.
And speaking of relatability, Alex, you're exactly right, because I think if you wait And we've had this conversation with like advertising customers in the magazine and racers that we've worked with in the past, that it's like, you don't really want to wait until you're, well, drag racing will break your heart, right? I mean, you're going to, no matter how successful you are, you're going to lose a lot. You take a lot of L's in this sport. No matter how much you win, you're going to lose a lot. So if you wait until you're in the winner's circle to start telling your story, or if you wait until you're stacking up championships to start telling your story, you're right. You kind of enter the conversation at a point where people are like, oh, okay, that guy or gal is way beyond anything that I'm ever going to experience.
Exactly.
So I think it's a very valuable thing.
There's also a chance you may never get to that point. And I think so many people put all their weight behind on-track performance and think that that's going to carry them. And maybe at one point it did. But even if you're out there winning championships, you've got to do what you're doing. And I think doing what you're doing, regardless whether you win or not, is so underrated. That's how we kind of did with my dad for all these years, is that, you know, you may not win every race, but if you do a pre and post race release and you're doing social and you're doing the things to try to keep your name out there, anytime you get a sponsorship, you're announcing it, all these things that I feel like at the upper echelons, especially in door car racing, a lot of people just neglect because they're relying on their on-track performance. That can make up for so many things.
I think people are paying attention too. You have a huge following. Well, just for instance, make no mistake, when Stevie went out to Garrett Mitchell's little race, you know, that he put on, I'm sure he looked around and thought, he did all this off YouTube videos, you know. And if you noticed, when he got back from that race, he started creating YouTube videos and more social posts. And I think it's just a kind of a rude awakening. Like, wow, you know, maybe we waited too long, but they're trying to hop on the wagon now.
Well, and I think that's why everybody gets so feisty about No Prep Kings, is because all the hardcore, like, traditional drag racing guys are going, why are these guys famous? They've never won a Wally. You know what I mean? They've never won Indy. They've never won at Pomona. And you kind of get where they're coming from, but it's rooted in jealousy, right? I mean, it's rooted in the fact that these people started telling their story. They started connecting with people. And obviously they had a huge leg up with Discovery Channel, but there's still no doubt that creating that content and putting themselves out there and living with the consequences is really the magic. That's what makes the difference. It's funny too. You made a good point about knowing all these different walks of the racing life, because I remember one time I interviewed John Force, and I'm not trying to throw the guy under the bus, but he was trying to give me a compliment, but it spoke to how, like, singularly focused those guys are and gals are. He goes, you know, I like that magazine of yours, kid. And I'm like, oh, thanks, John. You know, and this is big.
Book.
You know, it was a big deal to me.
That's what
Buck. He calls me Buck.
No, Book. Love your book.
Yeah.
Love that book.
Love your book. He goes, I like that thing. He goes, it's got all them other, you know, stock cars in it. Right. And he was meaning like, you know, 10.5 cars and door slammers and stuff. But it just goes to show you that, like, he doesn't even speak that terminology. I mean, he's so dyed in the wool nitro, and a lot of those guys and gals are. And I think that it's a good thing to be well-versed in all these different worlds, because our sport is already massively segmented. And when you have the ability to show up at a No Prep Kings event and be welcomed and be part of the crowd, but also go to Steele, Alabama this weekend with Donald Long and, you know, that whole Radial Tire contingent, who are, you know, as hardcore and passionate about what they do as anybody else in drag racing. But then you can also show up at the Midwest Drags or out at Rocky Mountain Race Week and be one of the gang. That's a valuable skill, a valuable trait, Alex, that I think is going to serve you well. It's interesting, at least to me, that you're able to go to all those different areas and fit right in. What do you make of, we were talking about this to start the show and you were in the green room. I don't know if you overheard us, but what do you make of the sport of drag racing right now? I mean, as a young person that has a strong following on social, that's super active in this sport, I'm just curious, because you can't help but hear about the tracks closing or this happening or that track's going away or whatever. But we continue to rant and rave that, man, this is a good time. I mean, you were at Sick Week. That place was packed. Most of the tracks we went to had a hell of a crowd. They sold out of cars. Lights Out, obviously, was bonkers. You were down there for that, or excuse me, the Sweet 16. You were at No Prep Kings this past weekend. I mean, what's your take on this sport right now? I mean, you got to feel good. Look at the opportunity that drag racing has provided you.
Well, that's the thing, and it has, and I'm thankful for that. But there is a lot happening, just like you're saying. I just mentioned earlier, like I've been at a track for 5 different weekends, and it's not for the same series. Like there's so many events, and you do hear of tracks closing. We're actually discussing that on the way here. But at the same time, like the tracks that are there and that are they're thriving, and there's a lot of, I mean, I can't speak on their behalf, but you see people showing up to those. You see there's a lot circling the sport. You talk to companies, you can't get parts, which that's for, whatever reason it may be, but part of it's because people are out and doing things. And, there's other factors that play into that, but there's a lot that's happening. And I think that there are a lot of young people into it, just, in different extents. Like you might say in some segments, say the NHRA maybe, which I'm just speaking here, there may not be as much new blood in that. But like there's stuff that starts, in other areas that, entry level and things like that, where there's a lot of people out doing stuff, and you have so many new cars that with the new rules and everything that you can go out and put your car on the track. Like I think there's a lot. And I think, there's lots of opportunities, and I think companies are like, with the combination of social and things like that, it allows parts to be showcased and people to be doing things and provides a storyline. I think it's alive and well.
I agree. I mean, I don't think I saw a better example in recent memory than Sick Week. And I think people think I've become like a fanboy of that particular event. But it was just it was like a cornucopia of cars, right? You had Tom Bailey's stuff, your guys' car, like these really exotic high-end machines, but you also had like relatively stock Mustangs, Camaros, Cadillacs, CTSVs, some highly modified street cars. We followed a turbo S10 down the highway for quite a while. They sold out of tech cards, and I looked around and I'm thinking, how can you not feel good about car culture when you see events like this? And just the people that were following along that weren't even participants, that weren't racing, I was really blown away with it, that whole event. What do you make of the drag and drive scene? I mean, obviously you're doing this radial experiment right now, but what's your plan for the rest of 2022? I'm assuming that we're going to see the 55 of you and Pops at a bunch of these deals.
Yeah, so I had but last year I was trying to decide, I was like, do I stay in drag and drive or do I try other stuff? Just because, like, for personal growth, I was trying to decide what the best route was. But drag and drive has just exploded, and that's something that I've talked a lot, about with Tom Bailey, who puts on Sick Week. You look at those events and like they're sold out. They sell out in minutes, and it's hard to get into them at this point. And I will be at most of them with the 55. We've got, I think, 3 to 4 more coming up with the 55 this year. So we're just getting started with that. We've got testing coming up. I think those events are great because it allows people to like enter without, they can enter with their daily driver technically and go out and have a good time and then grow to love it and then grow their cars and their stuff from there. And so it allows, like, it's a very welcoming group, and it's great for spectators because there's some kind of weird something happening at every corner of the track, whether it be a random combination, somebody got their transmission out on a picnic table, like there's so much stuff happening. So those events, and then they're great for the storytelling side as well. There's always stuff happening with that. So we'll definitely be at Drag and Drive. Dad and I are guilty of definitely talking about building another car, for it at some point, just because we're like, okay, well, once we hit the stuff with the 55, like, what do we want to do next with it? And so, we've looked at different options for that, and we'll definitely stay with it for, a while longer. And then we've got the stuff with the Pro Mod, the Bumblebee car coming up too. So lots of stuff.
I'm curious, like, if you won the lottery and you and your Pops could do whatever you wanted, what would you do?
We'd probably, oh man, that's a hard one. Definitely. As far as like car goes.
Yeah. Racing.
Yeah. I mean, I want to build a 5-second street ball. I want to compete with like Bailey and Schroeder in them. Like I want to build a car that's capable of doing that, and crossing over to a couple different areas of racing as well. So that's what I'd like to do.
So what do you think that there is a strong future for that unlimited category? I mean, we saw like the kind of heavy, steel roof and quarters. That seems to be a strong, but we were talking about this while we were down there. What's a guy, how do we get that Larry Larson, Jeff Lutz, all these different guys and gals back doing battle in that deal? I mean, even if it's 6 or 8 cars, I think it would it seems to me like it has the potential to carry the deal and create year-long news and year-long interest.
It's that's a difficult question because like you don't see a lot of new entries into that class necessarily. It's just those are expensive and hard cars to build just because like it's one thing to build, you know, a car that goes fast. It's another thing to build a car that goes fast and lives for as long as it does. And so it's difficult. But on the flip side, I think like sixes are the new eights, it seems like people are running sixes like crazy. And so, I mean, I think naturally stuff is going to speed up. And so that may end up putting more classes in that unlimited category. I don't know how to get people over there, so to say, you know, I don't have an answer.
Do you think all these new opportunities to race is going to help, Alex? Like Tom Bailey prior to, I mean, I'm not saying exclusively, but he would historically, if you built a car like that, you'd run one race, right? Now it would appear that there is an opportunity to race 4 or 5 times a year with that type of car. Or more, maybe that's going to help, or more, right? Maybe that's going to help, you know?
I think that stuff does help for sure, because at this point, you know, there's basically a series of drag and drive. Like 5 drag and drive a year is a lot of wear and tear. That's hard to keep a car going for that much. So I think now that there is more opportunities for that, and you see most of those races crossing over using the same rule set, so you're not, you know, having to tweak stuff this race to that. I think that's going to open up stuff. I think, you know, maybe if some point, you know, it did become not a series, but where stuff is, you know, there's a little competition with it. There's always that. And Bailey has his new shootout events with those cars that go compete there. So there's opening up more opportunity for those cars. And hopefully that does, you know, get people to come invest into
the
that.
Grand Slam of drag and drive.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but I do think it's like that being able to like get your money's worth out of your investment, I really do think is important. Like I think about cars like the Bumblebee Camaro. A lot of those radial, you know, the RVW cars, I look at those as like multi-purpose door cars. You can run that car, you can change 4-link, take the wheelie bars off, put radials on it, go run RVW at, you know, this series. You can go run No Mercy Lights Out in the Sweet 16, some of the big money races, the big prestige races. But then you can also change the 4-link, change shocks, put wheelie bars on it and a set of big old tires and go run PDRA or go run Midwest or go run wherever. Right. So it's just a car. It's a combination you can get a lot of mileage out of, you know, and I'm hoping that's what we see happen in the drag and drive scene, specifically the unlimited category, because that's all that deal's missing, in my opinion, from being amongst the biggest things in drag racing is 3, 4, 5 superstar personalities. Yourself, Tom Bailey, Schroeder, you know, a handful more. And all of a sudden it becomes, I mean, I think it would have a more maybe underground hardcore following than like No Prep Kings and Street Outlaws. But I think it could be that big in a hurry. I really do.
If they could get the Lutz Larson rivalry going again. I mean, that was pretty big. At one point, you know.
Yep.
That's still a pretty tense rivalry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man, it really is. But it's a cool thing to see, and it's nice to know like people take this stuff really seriously. And I'm hoping that with the advent of more of these events, and I don't know how many, I think we will hit like critical mass at some point when the industry can't really support much more of it. But right now, it feels really good. What do you make of? And I appreciate you being so generous with your time, Alex. Thank you very much. The other thing I was going to ask you, one of the conversations your dad and I had while we were on sick week with you guys, and I haven't had a chance to publicly thank you for letting us be a part of that. We hopped in and we basically followed along and got to play lead car for a while. They
felt sorry for you after me and JT left.
Yeah, that's probably true.
They needed somebody to take them in.
Some chaperones.
Alex. We had a ball.
We were like, please, Wes, lead us because you've got headlights. We don't even have wipers here. So.
I love having like a dog in the fight, right? Like I just want to have a horse, you know, I want to be involved with something. So I appreciate it. Genuinely. We had a blast and I can't wait to do it again.
Right up until he blew his arm out.
Yeah.
I started. You're like, where did Wes go?
Yeah. Where Wes went to the hospital is where Wes went. Oh my goodness. What a deal. I started physical therapy yesterday. And it's hurt. It hasn't hurt this bad since it happened. I would tell you, I was sitting next to Joe Barry's car and I yanked that tire off and I didn't give up. I felt it snap and I go, oh no. And I thought I about passed out, but then I thought, well, I got to get this tire off. So I wrestle this tire off and I look over at your dad and I go, hey, you're probably going to have to do the other side. And he's like, okay, you're all right. And he went around. I handed him the torque wrench, or not the torque, the impact. And he went around to the other side of the car. And I walked over to Nate and I said, hey, man, I think you need to take me to the hospital. And I never saw anybody again. We were gone, you know?
Just like, where did he go?
Yeah, I felt horrible. But anyways, you're one of the things your dad said to me when we were walking to that restaurant there on the water, cool place. I can't remember what it was called, but he said to me, he goes, man, I would be bored out of my mind. Like, if I'm going to build something like this, I want to fight it. Like, I want to drive it down the road. I want to work on it. I want to use this thing all week long. He goes, I can't imagine like going pro stock racing or pro mod racing and just being in the car for 5 or 6 seconds. Like, I want to have it and enjoy it. So comparing and contrasting those two things, like, you basically live in that 55 Chevy for a week. How's that compared to crawling in and out of that yellow Camaro for 3-4 seconds at a time? I mean, I'm sure it's a much different relationship with the car.
It is so weird. Like, the 55 is like, I know it like the back of my hand. Like, I joke, it sounds goofy, but I'm like, 55 is my best friend. Like, I know it, you know, and like learning this yellow car it's been different, and I'm finally starting to feel good with it. But it's not like you have that time where you drive it and you cruise it and you just learn so much about the car, how it handles, how it reacts. Even on the street, you know, that translates over to the track. You know more about it. And this car, it's like, I just got in it and I sat in it for like 2 hours and just like, you know, I wasn't driving it, but I'm like, I need to know where stuff is. I need to be comfortable with it. But it's definitely different. Like, you definitely have a different relationship with it. And you understand the car differently. But I did get in, no joke. And like, Patrick was asking me before we left, he's like, what else do I need to change? I'm like, please add like a spot for me to stick my cell phone. I need a cell phone pocket. Like, in the 55, I got cup holders, I got, you know, cell phone
awesome.
chargers, I got all this stuff. And so he added it to the list. He's like, there is now a pocket for your cell phone, because we do live in the 55. There's stuff like, you know, snacks. I got chapstick that perpetually stays in the 55.
What were those things, those spicy peanut thing? What were those thingies?
They are so good. They're Japanese wasabi peanuts. And I have
unbelievable.
Nolan sent me like 12 bags of them. It's great.
Nolan from Iski's got the hookup. He's the plug on wasabi. What are they called?
Wasabi Japanese peanuts, I think.
Okay, they're awesome.
Sounds good.
No, they are really good. Yeah.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, you'll probably have to find them on eBay. I don't know that it's
JT's a snack connoisseur.
I know. I'm surprised Wes didn't have like a truckload show up. If he likes the candy, like he orders a case of it.
I'm really bad about that. Anything I like, I try to buy it via pallet.
Yeah. I wonder if I can just buy stock in this. Yeah.
What if we could buy the company?
Yeah.
I've tried to buy a pallet of Sour Patch Kids. I mean, do you guys know that Sour Patch Kids are now available bags full of just single flavors? Like, you can go buy blue raspberry Sour Patch Kids. None of that other stuff. None of those
We've seen y'all do some major damage at gas station candy aisles. So I'm sure you got that covered.
JT, how many condiments are in your desk drawer right now? I guarantee you've got ranch, honey mustard.
I've got like 3 drawers full. Yeah. I threw out all my pens and tablets and everything and just filled them up with condiments.
Yeah, JT's big on condiments. I'm big on snacks and candy. He's big on condiments. Okay, well, we lost Alex, it looks like, which was, I was just getting ready to tell her goodbye anyways. So
yeah, that was rude.
Hold on. That was rude. I didn't kick her or anything. Now we've got like a spinning circle of death here.
I think I'm back.
I'm back. Alex,
I'm back.
Thank you. Hey, shout out. Look at Holly right on top of your face. Great sponsor plug right here. You're a Holly and you're wearing a Peak shirt. I mean, we got all sorts of sponsor hookups right here. Well, hey, tell everybody in the car hello and thank you for sitting on the side of the road and talking to us for an hour. We genuinely appreciate it. Best of luck. Be careful and blow them away this weekend, man. We're excited to watch. We'll be paying attention.
Thanks. See you guys.
Thanks, Alex. See ya.
Bye.
Seriously, try to order those wasabi peanut deals. I forgot about those.
Find what these are. I've had those before. They're really good. And I think you can even get them like those little, like the crispy corn nut things. They serve you these on planes now a lot too. You can get corn those nuts? Wasabi. Oh, yeah. Corn nuts. Really? Yeah.
I like corn nuts.
Yeah, they're okay. I think they're just okay. Well, hey guys, let's pay some bills here real quick. I've got Maybe not. I just want to remind everybody that the Wes Buck Show is brought to you each and every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time by our friends at Stroud Safety. Stroud Safety is known for their top quality racing safety products, from drag chutes and seatbelts to fire suits, gloves, and blankets, all 100% made in America. Log on to stroudsafety.com/Wes to get special offers and let them know that you're there by way of us, the gang here at Drag Illustrated. We appreciate those guys. Tommy Cunningham, Anita, everybody up there in Oklahoma City. I also want to remind you that the Wes Buck Show is brought to you by our friends at Redline Synthetic Oils. Redline has a reputation with racers and hardcore enthusiasts for creating products that perform and protect better than any on the market, and they've been doing it since 1979. Whether it's your race car, your tow rig, your motorcycle, or your lawnmower, when you think about lubricants, you need to think about our buddies at Redline. Log on to redlineoil.com for more information. Guys, we still got a ton of drag racing stuff to cover, but I believe we already have our next guest in the green room. So let's dive right into it, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to expect a big round of applause from you guys.
Man,
this guy basically owned PDRA Pro Nitrous.
Yeah, he won every single event in 2014. I'm pretty sure it was the year, right?
Yeah, I think it was 24. I remember when we put him on the cover of the magazine.
What year?
I'm a
Jason,
big Jason
Jason will
Harris
have to
fan.
tell us. I forget.
Jason's going to have to tell us.
We need like intro music, like walk-in music.
Yeah.
I wonder what Jason Harris is walking.
Well,
I think it'd be
time. Party time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seems like it'd be some kind of Hank Williams song or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
let's find out.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, star of PDRA Pro Nitrous, one of my favorite guys, a great interview, the one and only Jason Harris. Give it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up, buddy?
What's up, dude?
Nothing much.
Well,
what year was it that you dominated PDRA Pro Nitrous?
It was so long ago. It was 2014.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
See,
14.
Man, undefeated. Just call me Brett Kepner Jr.
I got to every final. I lost 2 races. I had a burnt piston and ran Lizzie, and
every
then,
final.
And then Tommy got me one time. So yeah.
What would your walk-in music? Is that what they call it?
I think they call it walk out music because you're walking out of the locker room.
Okay, walk out music. Yeah, I guess so. What would it be like if you had to pick one song? Get you pumped up.
I don't know. I mean,
you don't have one.
I like all genres of music. So I mean, I would have to say "Walk It Like I Talk It" from Migos.
There we go.
What'd you say?
Walk It Like I Talk It from Migos.
That's a good one.
Oh, that is hilarious. That's not at all what I expected him to say.
No,
That's fantastic, man.
yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on.
I'm writing
right
that
now.
down to Google it too.
Yeah, Google it. You don't know that song? You know that song.
Oh, that's a
If
good
you've
jam.
heard it,
He's
you
got
would-
that song in his workout music or something.
Yeah, you have to.
That song came out when my son was like 2, and he learned the dance and did the dance. I got video of it, man. It's classic.
Little CC.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, get this, Jason. Mike's dad sold his race car today.
No way.
And it might be
The
coming. No,
Camaro?
the
Camara's
Camaro.
wrong, right?
It might be coming your way up there to Piedmont Dragway.
Really?
That's the word on the street. You might be
The word on
seeing
the
that.
street is it's going to go big dog. There's going to be a yellow Camaro going big dog racing.
Well, come on. Yeah.
Well, come
It
on.
needs-
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we
It's
wanted to
gonna be
talk.
interesting.
The reason I reached out to you earlier this week, I just wanted to touch base, man. And I've already said this to you, Jason, but I think it's worth repeating like publicly is, and we can talk about a lot of different stuff with you. You've got a lot of experience in different types of racing. But the Big Dog Shootout, the legendary Big Dog Shootout at Piedmont Dragway in North Carolina, that event is near and dear to my heart. That racing series, for a lot of different reasons. Like, there would probably be no Drag Illustrated if it wasn't for races like that. I remember growing up buying VHS tapes from those races, from Scott Caudill, and watching them. And watching all these heroes of mine, Rick Moore, Todd Tutterow. I mean, the list goes on. All these guys that were going out there and racing in those series. And I knew that they weren't getting, National Dragster's not going to cover that type of stuff, right? A lot of the other drag racing outlets didn't even know it was happening. And I thought, this is like some of the best racing in the country. It's happening on a Thursday night. There's all this local following, crazy fanfare. I mean, what does big dog drag racing mean to you? Like tabling anything that's gone on or what's going on right now? What is that series meant to drag racing, especially out in your neck of the woods? I mean, how many people have started there, careers started there?
I mean, back in the original days, like the days you were talking about you're talking about local guys, and we've got such a conglomerate of local guys that got together, and we started a series that started with back half cars, and it went from 6-second cars to 5-second cars to 4-second cars. And, on a nightly basis, this Thursday night deal just grew into this national phenomenon because we had stars like, I wouldn't mind saying this. I don't think Todd Tutterow would be where he's at today if it wasn't for Big Dog, because he literally got started at Thursday night on Big Dog because somebody built a car and wanted him to tune it, wanted him to drive it. And he kind of progressed from the nitrous to the blower deal. It's just unbelievable the amount of talent that's come through there. Jay Cox started with Renegade, which was the class below Big Dog. There's just so many things. Dwayne Silas, one of the best top sportsman racers that ever lived, he's tried to come down because he was running the Power Glide War stuff and tried to run at Big Dog on this DOT tire that we had because he was dominating Power Glide stuff at that time here in North Carolina. And he really just could not handle the pressure and the DOT tire and the things that it took to run at Piedmont Dragway. So much talent has come out of Big Dog that a lot of people don't. Travis Harvey. There's just so many. Tony Wilson's tried it. There's been a lot of big name cars. I even think maybe Charles has come down and tried it one time or two. If not, he ran when we ran the Power Jam. We run the Pro Mods and the Big Dog together. We used to call it the Power Jam.
Yeah. Those are awesome.
Thing. Yeah. And I don't think a lot of drivers would be where they were at today if it wasn't for Big Dog. And I don't think Big Dog would be where it's at if it wasn't for Van Abernathy and Mike and you guys covering the local series like it was. I know that's the first time I ever got in a magazine. It wasn't for anything else other than just being at Big Dog on a Thursday night. And this thing has progressed so fast over, the last 20 years that we're kind of at a point now where we've got to change something, or we've got to move around, or it needs to come back to where it was at.
What do you think? You made a great point just talking about how this has escalated, right? Yep. 6-second, 5-second, 4-second. Now we're talking 370 cars. You went 378, 200 something this past weekend out there. That is bananas to be doing at Piedmont Dragway. Do you think that is there a point of no return as far as the performance goes? Like, do you think that has? Because I guess the big hubbub over the course of the last couple of weeks has just been trying to get the car count up. There were some off-season rule changes made, hoping to bolster the car count, made some moves at the last minute, kind of turned some people away. And you, your dad, and a handful of the other racers that care about this series and want to see it, continue and thrive, get back to where maybe it once was. Do you think that kind of getting the cars, pulling them back a little bit performance-wise and not running, not having cars that are capable of running in the 60s or at least the low 70s, maybe that's not what it's for?
Yeah, I definitely think that Big Dog has kind of been what I like a working class, if there's such a thing as working class pro racing. Obviously there's money involved and money is always going to shine. So, but I also think it's hard to say that because I really think Piedmont is a 380 track. 380s, you can run that comfortable, no problem, as long as there's not an issue.
Define comfortable. Because that's a big part of what we're talking about. What makes that show is that track and that intimate facility. It's narrow, it's short.
There's grass growing up along the sides.
There's grass on the sides. The stands are like 3 feet off the guardrail. And it's a real intense environment. But that's 8th Mile Pro Mod racing to me, and that's something that we've lost. It's really one of the last places where you get that feeling.
Yeah, and me and you grew up experiencing that. I can remember going to Shuffletown, and that's what Pro Mod started. Top sportsman guys, hey, I got something faster than you, and that's how Pro Mod got started. And Big Dog kind of came along in that era when Pro Mod was, I would say Pro Mod was at its peak. The Scotty Cannon eras and things. Well, not the peak, but at the crest.
Yeah, it was a big moment. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And this was basically what I would call Little Guys Pro Mod. And Piedmont is very special. It is very tight. It's very narrow. It is not the longest place in the world, but for 380s at 200, it is. And if you have a problem, a chute doesn't deploy or you get it bouncing or something like that, you're going to have an issue. And it's not for an inexperienced driver. But that being said, I had a crash there. I had a crash there in 2009 in Big Dog at Power Jam when I was first learning how to drive, and I pushed it too far and just whacked the wall and ended up turning upside down. So, I know firsthand what it takes to do the wrong thing and the right thing at Piedmont. what if we slow Top Fuel down? What if we slow Top Fuel down to where they can't go 200 or 300? Now they can go 275. The excitement's kind of gone. I mean, right? I mean,
I think there's a window. Like I agree with what you're saying. But I think there's a balancing act, because I mean, like some of my favorite moments that I think when things were really exciting I think about the height of ADRL Pro Nitrous. Yeah. Those cars are running 4.0s, and you can't really tell me that shows wasn't exciting. It was badass, right? I mean, I think you're right on the Top Fuel thing. We go taking those cars from running 340 almost to running 280. No bueno. That's not going to work. But
it's about the show. It's about the show.
It is about the
and
show,
how much other stuff you add to that. And that's what Big Dog's got also, is you got the crowd, the dedicated hardcore crowd. They're betting on everybody. They're riding with every one of those cars that goes down through there. And just the dedication that facility has to running that series, and those guys putting on a show. And I mean, I think that no matter what the ETs are, I think when these things were running 4.0s, 14s, 420s, the show was just as good, because that's what the people came to see. So I agree with you that there is a balance that has to be struck between that and between performance and the show.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I would like to see it stay in that 380 range. I mean, obviously I went 378 the other night, and it was a newer car. I didn't really know how far we could go. I mean, obviously I wanted to run. I want to go as fast as I can go, but also I want to find a balancing act that can help the class. It's not going to deter somebody from coming out. Somebody who bought your dad's car, for example, they want to come out there and they want to race and be competitive. If you get a pro level, like you got me and Todd's not driving, but Todd's tuning. And, there's a lot of other guys that come out there that are professional drag racers. Unfortunately, the area we live in, we have a lot of badass pro mod drivers.
I think people, we produce professional pro mod drivers every day in North Carolina.
It is, and I think that's probably one of the biggest mysteries left to solve in drag racing that'll probably never be solved, is how do you, because I've seen it time and time again, where you give a great racer junk equipment and he's still going to find a way to win with it. But you can give a bad racer the best shit in the world and they probably ain't going to be able to qualify it. You know what I mean? And I've seen guys like Todd Tutterow prove that infinitely, that they can have, the lesser stuff, or they can have the rules stacked against them. The cream rises to the top. The best racers are going to be the best racers. And that's a very difficult thing to police. Right? I mean, how do you, especially guys like you that make a zillion runs, how do you make that fair for the guy that sees the tree 3 times a month, right? The 2 qualifying sessions and first round of Big Dog, you know what I mean? Versus you, who's probably, you racing an S10 and some no prep deal or whatever, and racing that, you know what I'm saying? You're driving a zillion cars. That it's really hard to make it even look fair. You know what I mean? With somebody like you or Todd,
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's what's made Big Dog special, because
I agree.
The guy got in the finals with me the other night. I mean, they worked their butt off. They had the transmission out and apart 10 times that day trying to get it going. And that's the dedication that you need for Big Dog. And the poor kid, he did everything he could to try to run, and he got lucky and he got in the finals, and he could have just as well beaten. I only went 430 in the finals because the track got a little iffy up top. So, I mean, he could have just put down a 415 and beat me. So, I mean, there's the deciding factor. And in drag racing, anything can happen. So I've beat the best. I've been beat by the best. I've been beat by the worst. So, I mean, when you put a lot of runs together, like we do, and me and Todd, you're going to see the ups and the downs of drag racing. And Big Piedmont has always been the deciding factor. Was the DOT tire when we ran those. Well, they don't make it anymore, so we kind of had to get away from that. But it's been the track, the amount of time you have between rounds, because you only get 15 minutes between rounds. So, I mean, burning your stuff up to go
right,
360 is not an option. And there's a lot of stuff that's made Piedmont great, and we want to keep it alive. So we want to get the cars in, and we want to kind of police it. So we got together some rules and stuff that we think is pretty fair. And we had a bad show the other night. With 4 cars, we still had 1,000 people on NC Pro Modders watching the live feed. And
and probably 2,000 people in the stands, from what I was told.
It was 1,500, I think, in the stands. Okay. On a Thursday night in the middle of April in Greensboro. And
Well, real quick, Jason, for the people that don't know, and I'm bad about this. I've been following Big Dog since it started, but I recognize that not everybody does. The unique format of Big Dog, for those that don't know, and I'm gonna pass it to you here in just a second. So I'll set this stage in that this happens during the race season once a month. What is it? The first Thursday night of the month or something like that? Yeah. The first Thursday night of the month is the Big Dog Shootout at Piedmont Dragway. For those that don't know, I would encourage you to look it up. There's articles on Comp Plus, on dragillustrated.com. A bunch of different websites have covered this deal. They used to have a great origin story on the website of how this whole thing, your dad had a hand in it, bringing this whole thing to be. And it became something of a local phenomenon where I remember in the early days of the magazine, I would call and Rod Hauk and a handful of these guys that I would call and do interviews with, Todd, your dad, I mean, various people, they would tell me, Wes, people are talking about this deal Friday morning at the local coffee shops. I mean, what happened at the racetrack Thursday night trickled, it overflowed into the local community. The flags were flying. It was Ford versus Chevy versus Dodge. There was these brand wars. There were the superhero cars. The one car's painted like the Hulk, that 57 Chevy, that one car's Spider-Man. I mean, and so on and so forth. Superman. They had all these Superman cars. There was all these different kind of characters on display. And
at one point, you even had Pat Musey and D'Antoni,
Mark D'Antoni,
the big showdown, the North-South deal. I mean, that was really like the culmination of that deal.
That was probably one of the greatest drag races that's ever happened, in my opinion, especially like outlaw 8th mile races. But so this deal goes on the first Thursday night of every month. But Jason, would you take people through like the kind of how you were talking about 15 minutes between round, like what's the race look like whenever it happens? You roll through the gates, and
when you roll through the gates, you get there, you have to get there about 12 o'clock. We do a 2 o'clock shakedown. And we used to not do a 2 o'clock shakedown. We had so many cars that we didn't have time. By the time we did a 2 o'clock shakedown, it was time to qualify. You get a 2 o'clock shakedown. Then we start qualifying around 5:36, somewhere in there, depending on time and weather of the year. And you pretty much get 2 qualifiers, and you go into an 8-car elimination round, first versus 8. And you just battle it out. And you got to run. You only hit 2 qualifiers. So if you get a shakedown and 2 qualifiers, if you miss a bad shakedown or you have a bad qualifying round, you can get knocked out pretty quick. Or you get, and Piedmont's been notorious for a 1-lane racetrack at times. Sometimes the right lane's good, sometimes the left lane's good. And so if you get thrown out of lane, you can be the fastest car there. But if you have a bad shakedown or you have a bad qualifying, you get moved out of your lane and your night's over with. And you literally have 15 minutes from the time you run to get back, to get your car serviced back up there and get back for the next round. And that's what makes it exciting, because I think you can't go out there and pull the mustard out and just go as fast as you can and burn it up. And just, you got 45 minutes, an hour to put pistons in, things like that. You can't do that. You've got to use your head, race smart, race the racetrack. And not only that, you've got people, thousands of people coming in throughout the night that are coming up to you, and you're literally pitted in the stands. The stands are 50 feet from the trailers, and they're in your crew. There's cars going up and down. It's a party. It's a race. There's a lot of things going on. I mean, there's been many times we used to have police escorts from the finish line to your trailer. So really? Once you pulled your chute, the police escort would escort you back to your trailer and put you back in your trailer. And we had to
just to clear the crowd to get through there, because it is super tight. I mean, the whole facility there's no room to breathe there for sure. But that's what adds to it. That's what makes it special, in my opinion.
It does. And I grew up watching it. I worked it. I raced it. I saw it. And I've seen the culmination of what it is. And I will be the first one to tell you, nobody knows Jason Harris, Pro Nitrous Racer. They could care less if I was a world champion, but they know, oh, you race Big Dog. Oh, yeah. I see them. They're like, oh, what kind of car you got? Oh, I got a Pro Mod. Oh, okay. I'll run Big Dog. Oh, you run Big Dog? They don't.
I mean, I got goosebumps, dude, and I just think that is awesome to me. And I wish there's a lot of lessons in that, in my opinion. Do you think drag racing as a whole could benefit from that approach, where it's like you don't have to, like, I remember Don Garlitz, that was one of his claims to fame, is that he thought you should have to race the engine you qualified with. Like, we've got to get rid of this mindset that exists of just blowing the shit up and burning it up every time you let off the, whatever time you hit the gas. Because that, to me, that quick turn, and I get it's not for everybody, and that's a high pressure environment, but man, I really think that could solve many of the issues our sport is facing if we just picked up the pace a little bit and took that time away. Because if racers didn't have the time, I mean, the only reason they're towing into those uncharted waters tune-up wise is because they know they got time to fix it and they've got spares. If you eliminate
and that the track is on kill and it's as wide and as long as they can stand, and if you take away all those things, you've got the makings for a better show.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely. I mean, obviously, I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see anybody tear their junk up. But you got to use that in your mindset. If you go out there and you think you're going to lock it up and carry the front wheels 300, 400 foot. I mean, Chris Rennie tried it last year there, and it was a lot of trouble. He aborted a lot of runs because it's sketchy. I mean, that's the only thing you can say for it. I mean, I would like to see a lot of organizations do that. I would like to see organizations where you can't pull. We have a new rule in Piedmont where you can't pull the head during a round. Let's just say you are fast and you do burn up a piston. Once you start qualifying, you cannot pull the head. It's over. You got to race it like it is. And that's going to keep guys from doing it. Now, is that fair if you make a mistake? No, but I mean, that's just kind of the price you pay. And we've tried different levels of Piedmont. We've tried drawing out of a hat where, you don't know who you're going to get. That was pretty fun. We've tried different things at Piedmont to make it successful. And, drag racing right now is at a turnaround, is at a turning point. I mean, where are we at right now? We're kind of losing the scope of everything because we've either priced ourselves out or we've become an organization or a sport that's all about money and not about talent anymore, because money can buy you a lot of things and it can buy you some round wins, but sometimes talent's going to rise to the cream of the crop, but not always. I know you said, Wes, that, the best driver, the best driver cannot always win, even if he's got a piece of junk, but you see guys that would spend millions of dollars to come out and run PDRA. And I mean, some of them, they still can't run but they're going to win eventually. And I would like to see some other organizations do what Piedmont has done, put the pressure on these guys not to make just glory calls.
It's great for the spectator as well, watching the race.
That way we don't see tractor races all day. I don't want to – I get sick and tired of seeing
it's awful to watch. It really is.
Yeah. We enjoy it because we're drag racing fans, so we can go off and we know what time – but think about the average guy. Think about the guy you're trying to get, like the guys in my shop here. Dude, they text me, what time are you going to run? They're not watching anything else because they don't want to see it. And I mean, I just feel like right now drag racing is at a cultivating moment where we could change stuff or we're going to lose it.
Yep. I think the simplest way to say it, I mean, that was perfect how you said it, but the cars are too fast. The cars are too fast, and we're too focused on making these cars too fast. And I think pulling them back a little bit would help so many ways, but that's easier said than done. That's kind of the constant battle we're facing.
I feel like we, as drag racers, like as a community, we really struggle to shake off like our land speed racing roots. You know what I mean? Like drag racing's roots are in land speed racing, right? I mean, it's in dry lake beds in Southern California, and that's all well and good. But sometimes we've let this constant evolution, this constant escalation where we always want to go faster, we always going to want to go faster, get in the way of what has been our bread and butter of putting on awesome side-by-side races. The cars have to be fast. They can't be minivans, right?
Yeah.
But you may
we're
not,
way past that.
You may not try to break
we just said that. We just said how sixes are the new eights, right? I mean, every car out there is fast these days, is what it seems like.
It really is.
You wouldn't try to set a ET record every time you go out. And then there's so many qualifiers at some of these races that, hey, I know I can miss a couple.
I mean? And it's like some of these, I remember there was a time not too long ago where, Donald Long may as well have not put on a race if there wasn't a world record set. Like people were up in arms if there wasn't a new record.
About the round wins.
They didn't care about winning races. Everybody went to those events just looking to hit the long ball, and that's great. But man, this is drag racing. It's not land speed racing. And I think that, Big Dog, those events became what they are, and that series became what it is today still because they were more focused on the racing. Like, hey, let's get side-by-side drag racing that's close. We've got a great venue for it. Let's keep the show going. That deal was built to serve the spectators as much or more so than the racers. I'm curious, you roll up, I'm just curious, like your personal opinion on this situation, Jason, like you roll up and for whatever, and you're in the bad lane. Like, Is that not part of the drag racing experience? I mean, do you see what I'm saying? Like, don't you think that, I mean, I know everybody hates that and they want the track to be on kill all the time and they want it to be perfect, but man, isn't that part of this whole sweet science, right? You've got to race the racetrack. If it's always perfect and it's always kill, the rich guys you're talking about, more often than not, they're going to be able to outmoney the maybe better racers that have more experience, the Jason Scruggs that have raced on every nitty-gritty eighth mile on the planet, right? I mean, you kind of negate his advantage when the track's perfect. Everything's perfect.
Right. And that's a good example. I mean, you take Jason Scruggs, who grew up in Mississippi on these small tracks, and I've seen him touch both lines and still go 360. These guys that start this, when you get in this racetrack, and if you come to Piedmont, you'll understand. And guys have been to Piedmont. Tommy Franklin's been to Piedmont. Randy Weatherford's been to Piedmont. Todd, Cam Clark, Jay, all these guys have been to Piedmont. They'll tell you there's a reason why we don't go there and test, because it is a sketchy, not a sketchy surface, but it's just a sketchy facility. But it's still capable of being safe as long as you're within a certain realm. I mean, you go back to saying like Donald stuff in RVW. I respect RVW guys to the fullest, but when you got to have the racetrack meet your tune-up, there's an issue. I mean, they got to have a glued up racetrack to set a record. I mean, where it's just absolutely unstoppable and the best racetrack you've ever seen. But then first round comes around, on Sunday morning when it's 110 track and every one of them's blowing the tires off. So, I mean, there's fine lines between what's raceable and what's not. And Piedmont's still a raceable surface. And I feel like Big Dog, with the right amount of rule changes and the right amount of camaraderie and stuff that we get, if we can get some parity and stuff going on, then it can survive what we've got. It's just right now we're in a sticky situation where we need to get some cars, and we need to get, and we need to address the rules that we have based off the cars that we have. And if we can sit in a room as a grown adults and not try to make our one combination, better than the next combination, then I think we can save. We talk about rules, record setting. I was just sitting here thinking about when you guys were talking about setting records. There's no scoreboards at No Prep Kings, and they still pack the house because it's television and the way it is and what type of racing it is. So they have no idea what even the guys. I'm assuming the guys that run there, they don't know what they run.
No.
So they have VPSs. They're just guessing. So. Maybe we're looking at the wrong side of drag racing. Maybe we need to get back to the, like you say, the grassroots, where that's why I put a challenge up. I challenged anybody that can set or meet Big Dog rules as they are right now, that can come down there and beat me, Cam, Barry Mitchell, even Brian Schrader. He wasn't there. If he can beat one of those legit Big Dog guys, I'll put up $1,000 that you can't do it. You can't bring your car there and do it. And if you can,
there it is.
There it is. I mean, I'm putting a call out there. Jay Cox was there the other day. He was at the race. He didn't have his car there. Granted, we got PDRA coming up. He only has one car. I mean, it'd be tough to turn around and get ready.
Well, I hope Jay ain't yellow. The car's orange. I hope he ain't got a yellow streak. Golly, I hope he shows up.
He was there. And
he needs to bring that. He needs to bring that stacker trailer and unload the pumpkin and get him a bite, man. I mean, I'm telling you, that type of racing, in my opinion, is what our sport needs. I get wound up about this stuff like a physic woodpecker, because I just think that that energy on a Thursday night, this could be happening at tracks across the country, right? I mean, I think this is a model that could be followed by other tracks, because there are guys obviously that can commit to a touring series and commit to traveling around the country, right? And racing pro nitrous. I mean, it's obviously an East Coast deal, but there's still a lot of travel involved in PDRA racing and Midwest Drag Racing Series and NMCA. There's a lot of running around if you're going to chase the points. And to think about, I mean, Barry Mitchell's a prime example. He's probably, I mean, obviously the resources to race likely at whatever level he would want, but that's something that's manageable. It's in his backyard. It's a couple miles from the house. You don't have to have 700 people involved. You don't have to have an engine shop behind you, right? I mean, it's more of an attainable thing. And if we can, like you said, Jason, get everybody fired up about this deal, kind of rally the troops a little bit, this is a great recipe. This deal has stood the test of time, and there's no doubt that it's had its ebbs and flows, just like everything else in drag racing, just like everything else in the world. But I believe that formula is the right formula. It is the direction our sport needs to head, because the more land speed racing we do, the more chasing the best ever track conditions. It doesn't matter unless it's a world record. None of that matters, man. Let's go drag racing, right? Let's make this about wins and losses. And I just really think it's a big part of drag racing, the big dog shootout. I think it's an unsung hero in our sport, and it's something that I want to see succeed, man. I really do. And I appreciate you being willing to talk about it, because this is, I mean, especially out on the East Coast, this deal is awesome. Mike, I think, is the next race May 5th? Is that what Lance was just saying?
Cinco de Mayo, man. I'll be there. I'm going to be there.
I think I'm going to come. I'm going to come out too.
I've actually got, I got a guy plays on, his son plays on my son's baseball team, drag racing fan. And he was talking about going to ZMAX this weekend or next weekend to see pro mods. And I think I've successfully got him talked into holding off. We're going to go to Big Dog May 5th. Because that's he's wanting to show his son some of this stuff that he saw growing up. And I said, man, if you want to get that experience, we need to go to Big Dog, because you're going to get, I mean, 4 wide top fuel funny car. That's one thing. Kids are going to love that. But man, if you want to really see what this door car, you
can ride on the wing of Jason's car at Piedmont if you want.
Yeah,
you can touch the wheelie bars. Right?
This good old Southern 8th mile door car racing, man. That's the deal at Piedmont, especially since we've lost like the Quick 8 Racers Association and a lot of these other Carolina Extreme Pro Mod, a lot of these other deals that we used to run around this area. That's the last beacon for what we're preaching here at DI.
And here's another thing. The track's done such a great. Yeah, that's right. Lance just
Matt
mentioned
Hagan,
Matt Hagan. Yeah,
that's when I first encountered Matt.
Yeah, that's right. He ran Big Dog,
and they tried to do their own version of Big Dog, right? Yeah. At Radford, Virginia, the track that Motor Mile, the track
what'd they call that deal, Jason? We ran it a couple times.
Wasn't Mad Dog? It
might have been Mad Dog. Was it
Mad Dog? No,
I think it was Mad Dog. Oh, that was Mooresville.
Mad Dog, Mooresville's Mad Dog. Yeah, I'll think of it here in a minute. Yeah, we ran that a couple times.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about it. You get $750 to qualify. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but you could show right now. You could show up.
NHRA Pro Mod pays.
Yeah, but think about this. You could show up right now. All you got to do is be one of the 8 cars. You can make a pass. It doesn't have to be. It could be $530. You get $750. And
Mean 16 was what it
was. That's it. So I mean, like, think about it. You get $750 to qualify. I mean, what places do that now? I've got semis at PDRA. I mean, no, I'm not trying to bash on them, but I got $1,250. But nobody remembers me getting semis at PDRA. They remember me beating 4 cars at Big Dog on Thursday night. So
I think that there's something about it. And it's honestly, we have this conversation a lot, and I'm not like, saying anybody needs to change anything, but that's drag racing looks good. I mean, that is a venue that really serves our sport well. I mean, Mike made a good point talking about ZMAX. That's obviously an incredible facility, beautiful, luxurious, the skybox, the suites and everything. It's great. But man, I don't know that drag racing plays that well at a facility like that. I mean, I think if I wanted to take someone and really get them hooked, I'm taking them to Piedmont on Thursday night. I'm getting, I'm getting them down there and around this scene and that energy, because you're not going to feel it that way. I mean, you may have the earth shake underneath you when 4 top fuel cars, hit the gas on the starting line down there at ZMAX, but it's a different experience, right? You really get drag racing at its finest when you go to some of these 8th mile facilities. And I just think they're doing so many things right, man. I really do.
Jason, what's the outlook for the May 5th race as far as coming off the lower car count this past a week with the event? I mean, what do you guys, what's being done behind the scenes or what's going on to leading into the May 5th deal?
Unfortunately, we lost a couple of cars during testing. We would have had more. Mike Graham's got a 481X. He had a unfortunate motor problem with testing the day before, so he should be back. So that's 5. I know Barry Mitchell's got a nitrous car coming with Robbie Kazai. They're going to come with a 5.3. there's still some, the 5-inch guys, they still got a chance. Somebody's run the 5-inch stuff, unlimited stuff. So Schrader may be back. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. I mean, they felt like they got kind of done dirty with the rule change and things like that. But I can kind of see where Amanda was at. She was trying to make it more of a more class filler, trying to get more guys like Jay Cox and them to come. So she tried to move some rules around, but it was a little too late. But I mean, Ryan Schrader's got a Pro Nitrous car, so he's more than welcome to bring it too. It'll fit right in there. I mean, you got to weigh NHRA 2580 for nitrous cars, depending on cubic inch. 481Xs. They are allowing Hemis at NHRA legal, which means gearing and everything has to be NHRA legal stuff. So I mean, there's Chip King. There's some of them guys. The guy at your way, Mike, with the Chevelle. What's his name? Runs NHRA Pro Mod.
Doug Winters.
Yeah, sorry, yep. Doug Winters. That is perfect for him. I mean, he'll fit right in there. These guys.
There's a lot of cars, man. There's a lot of cars on Projects around the area, North, South Carolina, Virginia, that have struggled to keep up with the pace of Pro Nitrous or NHRA Pro Mod. We're one of them, man. A series like Big Dog is the place to look if you fit in that category.
Right. And I know parts problems have been an issue. I mean, nationwide, I deal with it every day here. But, I think a lot of guys got caught behind the 8 ball with that. So hopefully, I'd like to see 10 cars. That would be my goal. If I could see 10 cars, then that would be my benefit. Because, I don't want to see 3 guys go home, but it would make racing a little tighter because it's hard to get 8 cars qualified fast in 2 runs.
What were the rule changes, Jason?
Last year we ran 5-inch only, so nothing bigger than 800 cubic inch. You can only run 2 stages. We were only allowed 481X, and I believe it was with a cast blower 1871, and we had to run a certain overdrive. I want to say it was 21 or something % overdrive, and I think they weighed 2575 or 2550. I'm not 100% sure on the blower rules. Last year, 5-inch stuff, depending on cubic inch, had to weigh anywhere from 2400 to 2500. So like a 762, I had to weigh 2450, but I was only limited to 2 systems. No lockups. But the problem was we were talking about $80,000 5-inch motors that just wasn't out there anymore.
Right.
There are some out there, but these guys, I mean, you can go pick up a 5.3 right now for $60,000. So why are you going to spend $80 on a 5-inch motor that's only good at Big Dog? So now we were thinking going to the 5.3s that we can draw some guys that can run PDRA, can run NMCA, NHRA. We can draw these guys in, and even the Hemis. The 481X was kind of an older blower combination, but if you bring a Hemi in and we looked at NHRA 8th mile numbers is what we originally did. And all of us got in a room and we voted and we tried to keep it cost effective as Heads Up Racing could be cost effective. But we looked at the cars that we had, and that's how Big Dog started. We looked at the cars that were coming to the racetrack, what we had, and we tried to make it cost effective, and we tried to base the rules off of that. And when you're dealing with pro mods in this area, it's kind of a sticky situation. But there are a lot, like Mike said, there's a lot of guys on projects that could come out and can be competitive. And nobody says you got to come out here and go 378. I mean, I got lucky the other night. I just hit it right combination. And I'm not going to tell you I couldn't go faster. I'm not going to tell you that I just hit it amazing because I never could go back to it after that. I did it one time, So, I mean, there's a side effect. Anybody could have beat me in the finals if they could have just went down the racetrack.
Yeah.
And Barry got beat. Barry was the car to beat. I mean, we knew Barry was going to lay some numbers down and it crossed the center line. And that's just how it kind of goes.
And that's what it's about too, man. I think too, when the track's perfect and we're at these crazy facilities, people look at who's the quickest. And if they're nowhere in sight of that guy, they're not showing up because they feel like they don't have any chance because really the track is going to be on kill the whole time. They're not going to have an equalizer to be able to try to catch those guys. Like you said, crossing the center line, track fading in and out, dew setting, whatever the situation may be. You got lane equalizers at lane choice. You got equalizers at Big Dog to where, even if you're a 10th off the quickest guy or whatever, drag your shit out there because you never know what's going to happen, man. I mean, we don't race these things on paper, and that's what we've got to get back to. We've gotten dangerously close to racing them on paper, in my opinion, because of the perfect conditions that everyone is presented with. This is not knocking any of that, but if we want to get back to some nitty gritty racing, this is the way to do it.
Do you think, I was just trying to, so being what you've said about the rules, Jason, and trying to open it up and let some of these, a pro nitrous car, an NHRA legal pro mod car show up, what do you think it's going to take to get those guys? Because is it not enticing to a Jay Cox to like put a little weight in his car, not lean on it as much, but go race in a competitive environment? Like, what's it going to take? I mean, if you had, obviously you can't speak for those guys, but I'm just curious, like, you're a racer, you do this, you've raced in all these different arenas. What's going to get them over the hump to get, do you think it's just stuff like this where it's starting, we can talk about it and put a little shine on it? Maybe is that what it's going to take? Because for me, I'm going, Jay Cox, I've never seen anybody work on his shit more than that guy, right? You walk by his pits and it's like a war zone most of the time because this dude races hard, right? He runs hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'd think it'd be fun for him and Lloyd, his dad to go out and race and not maybe have to do quite that much work, not have to yank the heads off of it, not have to lean on it that hard.
I think Jay's a prime example. I hate to keep coming back to Jay, but Jay's only, an hour and a half up the road. But maybe it's the weight. Maybe, he's concentrating on PDRA. That's where his sponsor wants him to run. And maybe, he's got to add 100 pounds, 125 pounds to his car. We have to weigh 24.25. He's got to weigh 24.50 this year in Pro Nitrous. So he's got to add 130 pounds to his car.
A lot, yeah.
And that's a lot. But in the same aspect, it's an hour and a half from his house. It's on a Thursday night. He can be back at work on Monday or whatever he does. People say he works. I'm not sure, but
all of our phones are going to be melting down after this.
I know. He's going to get me good. But for a good example, Tommy's 2 hours away from us. He can bring his car down. Randy Weatherford, he's, an hour from us. There's a lot of guys in this area that can run hard. Now, some of the, like Randy's car, the Pro Charge car really doesn't fit into rules. It's just not that paceable. But, there's a lot of different cars that can come down and run. And if we got to the point where we can, like you say, deciding factor is not always how fast you are. It's also, and you can look at that when we run Pro Nitrous. First round is always the best round because it's middle of the day. You never know what's going to happen. Halsley got beat at, I almost got beat at Goliath because the track just changed. It was just crazy changed on us. And I've always said, my dad's always plays the ladder game. He looks at where you qualify. Oh, you got to qualify here so you can beat so-and-so. I'm like, look, the top 16 guys can whoop your butt no matter where you're at on the ladder. And I try to tell him that. And I said, for a good example, I would rather run Tommy, Jay, or Jim first round. Because number one, nerves, and number two, the track factor. So that maybe that's
if you got to run them in the final, that's like
they've got data.
It's 8 o'clock. They've made 2 runs. Yeah. You know what I mean? The sun's down, the track's coming around. Yeah, that's the last time you want to race them guys.
That's why you'll never. I'm not a big qualifier. You never see me top 3, qualifying because I'm not going to push my car to the fact that, well, I've got to work on it that night. And these guys have got their combinations down. So take that to Big Dog. Now you can come there. You don't have to work on your stuff, which I don't know if Jay can run without burning up there because he's going to try to beat me no matter what. But Tommy's the same way. These guys can come down there and, there's some safety factors we need to factor into Piedmont, and maybe we can put some money into the track and get it back, but at the same aspect, if we could keep this a 380 under 200 deal, I think we're going to be successful. And we're going to do what we have to do to get there. If we have to limit the 5-3 guys to 3 stages or 4 stages or whatever we have to do to keep them under that with a jet size, then we're going to do that. The number one issue is tech. You got to be pretty smart to tech all these cars. And Rick Moore has been teching for the last couple of years, but he's only one guy. And he, Rick tries to stay up on the up and up, but it's hard.
It is.
Rick's an unsung hero of that deal too. Rick's a guy, he used to compete in it. I don't think they opened the gates at Piedmont without Rick Moore being there. And he's an unsung hero on that deal.
He is, man. I remember that Grand Am, that red Grand Am with Spider-Man on it, right? Like that. Yep. That was one of the cars, right? In the height of Big Dog.
It goes back to wrestling. I've always said wrestling and monster trucks. If you go back to that, that's what it was about. It wasn't always about the Grand Am that won or Rick Moore that won. Spider-Man won. Hulk won. We had Superman. We had them all. Green Goblin. We had them all. I mean, every superhero there ever was, and that's kind of the way they're at. I mean, and I'm a one of those guys. I like the name. That's why I have Party Time. I love Harold Denton. That's where I grew up. I wanted to bring that heritage back. But I like the fact that Jay calls his the Pumpkin. There's just a lot of things that go back into Big Dog that we could make that style racing.
Well, and I think an argument, Jason, to that point could be made that, like using the PDRA as an example, I think a guy like Tommy Franklin shows up, or a Jay Cox shows up and develops a fan following locally. Those guys are apt to come to VMP to watch their boy carry the flag in pro nitrous competition, right? I mean, I think that like Jim Halsey, a lot of his fan following, I really think came from racing at Cecil County, running the Yellow Bullet deal early on, or running at Englishtown, right? And, doing those outlaw races, and you get, I mean, honestly, I think that's how a lot of the fan following that John Force has and Don Garlitz has, they built those followings, match racing, barnstorming these small 8th mile tracks all over the country. You get that, you plant seeds locally, and when the big show comes to town, those guys are going to come fly your flag, And I honestly think there could be some benefit to the PDRA and to those series by developing those followings and developing the relationships with the fans on a local basis like that. And you never know, man. It could help anywhere the PDRA went.
Yeah.
Events like Big Dog could serve a strong purpose, man.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So.
Well, dude, I appreciate you so much taking the time to talk about this stuff. It's been great. We're big fans of what you're doing. We're obviously looking forward to seeing you compete at the fast approaching Big Dog Shootout next Thursday night, right? Is that what it is? No, two Thursday nights.
No,
two weeks away. May 5th, Cinco de Mayo meets Big Dog. And I expect to see you at the Door Slammer Derby, right? The PDRA event coming up at Bowling Green, in Bowling Green, Kentucky at Beach Bend Raceway, man. We're super happy for all your success and everything you got going on, man. Congratulations on the win. And we hope to see you again soon, Jason. Thank you, brother.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for what you guys do, too. Yep.
Have a good one.
Our pleasure, brother. Thank you. Man, this is
he's a good interview.
He is a great interview, right?
Yep. He comes by that naturally with his dad.
Yeah, we should probably have Bob on here sometime. I don't know if we have enough time or if there's enough internet available in the world for that conversation, but we should consider, because Bob all but invented a lot of that shit out there. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And he's so passionate about it, and I just think that it's a great series, and I'm glad we spent some time talking about it, because at times, I remember one time David Rear, he called me from Rear Morrison Racing Engines, and it still blew my mind, like thinking that my phone, I looked down and it was, David Rear, and I'm like, what is happening, right? And I remember answering the phone and him giving me this, and he was actually giving me a little bit of a talking to be totally honest. He was giving me a little principal's office treatment, and he said, hey, this magazine, and this has been probably in 2010, this has probably been 10, 12 years ago. He's like, this magazine, I love it, but I just want you to know that there's a Shannon Jenkins and a Jason Scruggs at every drag strip in America. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you guys are real big on this, super high level pro mod racing, and that's great, but and I'm glad you're taking care of those guys. But remember, there's all these 8th mile tracks across the country that have a local hero, right?
Well, what's that go back to, though? From our perspective, it's what sometimes we have to cover what we can cover, and all those heroes may exist across all those other tracks and all those other smaller series, but we don't have the resources to cover it. That's where having a marketing person on staff at Piedmont, they have Greg Burrow, who supplied us with photos and stories from each Big Dog event for years in the magazine. Without someone like that, either on staff or a freelancer that comes in and kind of tells the story of your track or of your heroes that run locally,
this is a little bit of an opportunity. I mean, it's an opportunity for us to plug that, because I don't mean to make this a sales pitch, but we do that for a lot of sanctions and series in drag racing. I mean, we handle all the PDRA's media, we handle Midwest Drag Racing Series, we do a bunch of different things. We do it for individual tracks, and it's and I don't care if you hire us to do it or if you hire someone else, but you got to have a Greg Burrow. We've talked 2 things that I want to make, 2 points I want to make as we wrap up here. And I want to thank all of our sponsors: Holly Performance Parts, Elite HP, Stroud Safety, Flow Racing, Sand Haulers of America, Redline Synthetic Oils. We are very blessed here at Drag Illustrated and the Wes Buck Show to have a whole lot of people that share our vision for the sport of drag racing and want to help us provide more value to the sport of drag racing. And we couldn't do this without them. So thank you guys all so much. But two kind of closing thoughts as we wrap up today's show, guys. One, you've got to take matters into your own hands, much like Alex Taylor, right? I mean, she's not waited on Fox News or ESPN to latch onto her story and start spreading the gospel. She's not waited on Drag Illustrated, right? She's done it on her own. She's taken matters into her own hands and started telling her story. And secondly, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but Chris Graves with Funny Car Chaos, Kenny Nolling with the ADRL at its height, right? Keith Haney with the Midwest Drag Racing Series, Tyler Crossnow with the PDRA, Steve Walcott with the NMCA. There's got to be someone waving your flag, right? If you want Donald Long with Radial Tire Racing, I mean, this is I've told this story many times, but it's worth repeating that at one point in time, not too long ago, radial cars were filler, right? I mean, drag radial was an also ran category. I think people that are relatively new to the sport would be blown away to think that the Shane Stat, like a lot of these guys that are huge names, those guys they ran after Pro Mod or after Pro Street, right? I mean, they were after Outlaw 10.5.
That was Donald's call that was his battle cry. Park
radial tires
in the weeds.
To the front, right? Park all that other stuff
because they were always in the weeds.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that the takeaway from it is that someone's got to be out front, waving the flag, shouting from the rooftops about what you're doing. And we're happy to do as much of it as we possibly can, but there's a lot of ground to cover out here. So every sanctioned series track, I really think the difference between a track that's super successful or a series that's super successful, it's a charismatic individual out front. It's someone shouting. It's someone talking about it. It's someone keeping the conversation going. So, hey, I'm happy to have contributed a little bit to that this past weekend. What is this?
Harris right there.
Below Pro Chargers. Okay.
Yep.
So that's a little bit of a different.
Remember when he was the MC at did you do it 1 year or 2 years?
Yeah,
every year for
and I was like sitting there because he'd always say, "Now me and this racer, we don't always see eye to eye." And I'm like, man, he's been into it about everybody.
Yeah, everything was. Yeah, me and this guy, we nearly fought to the death, but I love him. I love him anyway.
Those were some great banquets, man.
Those were, man.
Shout out to PDRA, still to this day, all-time greatest drag racing banquets. I've never seen anybody do it better.
Undefeated champion of banquets.
Undefeated champion of banquets.
It's always a good time after the banquet too. Seems like that night.
Oh yeah. It's typically a real good time for you and Mark Caruso.
Undefeated post banquet champion, JT Hudson.
It's so true. Okay, well, real quick, guys, let's just we've got 15 minutes or so before we got to wrap this thing up. Let's just do what are you looking for this weekend, Mike, JT? We got NHRA. We talked about this at the beginning of the show, but NHRA Spring Nationals. We talked about it a little bit. The NHRA's last trip to Houston Raceway Park. I mean, is it a bittersweet thing? Are you excited?
I'm interested in really all of them. There's some good racing going on this weekend, and I'm just kind of excited to see it all. And it's all a different type of racing, so that I think that piques your interest as well. You know, just like Alex was talking about wanting to race in a bunch of different things. As a spectator of drag racing, I want to also watch different types of racing. So, you know, we've got everything from no prep, you know, all the way to the professionals in NHRA. So.
Yep, I mean, between Flow Racing and Mad TV and Fox, you're going to be able to watch all this stuff
overload,
right? NMCA, no prep Kings, all this stuff. It's going to be
go ahead and do some nice stuff for your wife this week. Build up some credit,
go ahead and kiss up,
so that you can keep that bad boy. Keep all of your devices locked on Flow, NHRA TV, Fox, whatever other deals you can get going.
I got a kid going to prom this week.
Oh my gosh, JT!
This weekend, isn't that crazy?
What?
Yeah, I know, and I'll probably be at the after prom party. But
yeah, I figured. Look, hey guys, can I get in here? You want me to chaperone? Can I come in and?
Hey, how about Erica Enders, four-time Pro Stock NHRA Pro Stock champion, throwing out the first pitch tonight at the Houston Astros game?
Dude,
I think
that's a big deal. I mean, that's big.
Yeah, that is awesome.
I think.
I mean, I'm pretty sure like George W. Bush threw that pitch out at a Houston Astros game, right?
Absolutely.
And now we got Erica Enders. I wonder what her throwing arm is like.
I don't know. Erica, don't get nervous. Don't
Yeah.
stove up there.
I wonder if she's been practicing out.
Are
in the
you ever
backyard or
surprised by
something.
like they'll have high level athletes come out there and like throw the ball in the stands? You know, and it just
or it's
crazy.
just dude, it's far. I don't know how far it is. I'm not a baseball expert, but it's like
it's longer than you think.
Much further than you think from the pitcher's mound to home plate. So launch that thing.
Was it 50 Cent that like launched it sideways in the dugout?
What's his name? Fauci. Fauci did about as well on his first pitch as he did with his COVID coverage.
That guy.
Well, how about I think Conor McGregor, like the UFC star, he threw it in the dirt. Like he threw it.
I couldn't see him throwing one. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
that's weird. I think that's a great thing.
You're right-handed.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that if we could get more things like that, I love these crossover opportunities. Like, I mean, because what does that do for Erica Enders? What does that do for the NHRA? I mean, I just think it's a guilty by association type of thing that, I mean, I know it has happened several times in the past. I know the Forces have thrown out first pitches out on the West Coast. I think it's the Los Angeles Angels games.
Curtis Thomas says it's 90 feet from.
I think that's correct.
Pitcher's mound to home plate.
I know it is. From base to base. I'll just look it up for you guys.
Yeah, Google it. Thanks. Who cares?
Erica's probably like, we're hyping this up too much. We're not trying to make you nervous, Erica. Go out there and watch this thing.
Drag racing is. Oh, I got to show you guys this video real quick. Have you seen this shit? Oh, hold on real quick. Like this is a great after hours thing. I saw. So listen, we talk about burnouts happening on Las Vegas Boulevard on the strip, right out in Las Vegas. How many feet is it?
60 foot, 6 inches.
Oh, it's 60.
60 feet. All right.
The only 60 feet I care
90.
about
I was trying to
orange cone.
90's from base to base.
Okay.
Remember how far? Or where are you going? About 90 feet. Neat. Remember that?
Nicole Erickson says she threw it out in a mascot outfit at a Kansas City Royals game.
Oh wow,
that's awesome.
Multi-talented.
Yeah, you don't remember Major League?
I remember
when he was going to steal the base.
Yeah.
Where do you think you're going? About 90 feet.
Look at this. Have you guys seen this? I don't know if there's a way to turn it down. There we go. Check this out. All right, this is somewhere in Sweden. Have you seen this?
I have not seen this. This is our first time.
Okay.
So if you're on a podcast or like watching,
so I'm gonna. If you're listening along via audio,
is that a Beamer wagon tow vehicle?
Yes, this is somewhere in Australia, or excuse me, Sweden, and they appear to have unloaded a nitro funny car on an exit, right? And they have traffic stopped. There are semis. There are headlights as far as you can see. This is a public roadway. I see some dudes with headsets on. And here comes, like I said, what appears to be a Big Show Nitro funny car rolling across the rumble strips here. Right. And he's headed to Jarno. That's what the roadside says. He just rolled out on the highway and just let it eat.
And what was this for? What was this?
I think this is the type of stuff they do in Sweden.
Just as this was a promotional event for something. For
I don't think it was for a Formula One race or anything. I think they just felt like doing a burnout, and they probably didn't have anywhere else convenient to go. I don't know, but I was
backed up forever behind those cars.
Dude, how
I used to have buddies do that when I worked at Freedom Cycle in Kansas City. They would shut down interstates. And
you want to talk about pissing off the locals? Shut down a highway.
Yeah.
Not well received. Very rarely are people excited about that. I mean, in that particular instance,
that's why they put bumpers on trucks. You gotta move them some bitches out of the way.
I mean, can you imagine like rolling down the highway the other direction? You know what I mean? And seeing smoke rolling off a funny car.
Talking about rubberneck.
Did you see all the cars?
You're allowed to rubberneck if you see a nitro funny car doing a burnout on the interstates.
What the hell?
Dude, what a scene, man. I didn't know what to make of that. I got tagged in it like 60,000 times on Facebook. I'm like, yeah, I've seen it. I mean, but it doesn't have.
Someone's saying it's a Andy Cohen is saying it's a demonstration because of the cost to get anywhere to race. Is that it's really? Because of the pound? Is that a pound symbol? They can't get to the UK, so it was a protest or demonstration of some kind.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to tell you what.
Traffic behind those trucks.
Well, I hope our friends here in America, that's the way to demonstrate, right? Like, if you're going to demonstrate, just do it with funny cars, right? Do burnouts with funny cars.
We condone those demonstrations.
Yeah, we're big fans of those demonstrations.
Yeah, I got one for you. Here's a demonstration.
What is this one?
Remember this?
What is this one?
Here we go.
Oh, I know. Why isn't it playing?
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
They race.
Oh, this is from our race at Bandon.
Was this the first? Was this the first World Series of Pro Mod that we did this?
Yeah.
We
the first one?
We kicked it off in style with that deal.
Man, I can't believe how when he went to take off, it rattled you, didn't it?
Well, yeah, it blew my eardrums out just now. You know what I mean? And it was 4 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
they're still ringing.
Yeah, they're still ringing. Literally. No,
that's you talk about balls, man. If something goes wrong with anything on that deal, that guy is
you're not taking the head off, right?
Part of the Bandemir racing service from now on.
And then you got me sitting there close to you with a cigarette hanging out of my mouth and a beer, and my cell phone.
AKA
yeah.
breakfast.
AKA breakfast. Yeah, what a deal, man. What a deal. Well, hey guys, thanks for the time. I really enjoyed talking to Alex and Jason. What great guests, man.
It was.
Right. I'm going to see Joe Rogan tonight, so I got to bounce.
Wow.
Oh. Yeah.
Be sure to tell him that you do a podcast too.
Yeah, I know. Maybe he'll book me on his, right? I'm going to shoot him. I'm going to hold a sign up that says, "Do you want to be on my show next Wednesday?" Right?
Yeah. Do it. I dare
That'd
you.
be a great deal.
Do it.
If we could get
that
Joe
would
Rogan
be
on the show.
Yeah, it'd be pretty interesting if we get Joe Rogan on the Wes Buck show.
It would be cool, man. I'm looking forward to it though. I really am. I haven't been to
all of a sudden we'd be getting canceled left and right.
Yeah, downtown Fort Worth, man.
Left only.
Arena.
Left only. I said left and right. We'd only get left only cancellation.
Yeah, that's a fact, man. It's a fact. What do you do? Well, guys, thanks a bunch. I appreciate it. We got anything else to cover, or is it time to wrap?
That's it.
I think it's time to wrap. Well, hey, guys, again, I just want to tell you all, thank you so much for being a part of this deal. Thanks for tuning in each and every Wednesday afternoon. We'll be back next Wednesday, of course, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time to continue the drag racing conversation. Huge shout out to all of our sponsors. Everybody that supports this program makes all the difference in the world. Rogan is a car guy, says Kevin Stevenson. And I appreciate you guys. Seriously, all of y'all watching along, thank you so much. We genuinely enjoy the company, and we will see you next time.
There you go.
Thanks, y'all.
Look at my big